Do this.
Heck yeah.
Do this.
Heck yeah.
Hang on, it's
Do
you know,
this.
it's being
Heck
a little
yeah.
dumb. Hang on, it's
Do this.
being a little dumb. There we go.
Do this.
All
Hey,
right.
everybody.
Would you like me?
Go.
Would you like me to start?
All right.
Would you like me? Would you like me to start? Hello. Good night. Good morning. No matter where you are. Hello. It's a pleasure to have you all here. Hello. It's a pleasure. Welcome to the Bronies Against MS Real Talk panel. Real stories. Real talk. I'm Perry. I'm the host for this panel, and joining us today are three really excellent people, namely Witchy Spectra, Nugget, and Drake Emberheart.
Hello.
Now, before we begin, I just want to make sure you're all informed about the nature of this panel. The following stories and information you're about to hear might not always be easy to hear. They might not be suitable for those who are particularly sensitive in nature. This isn't just us, being very cautious. We may make sure you understand that everything you're about to hear is real, unfiltered, and comes from the heart and the real experiences of the individuals on the panel today. So please take this opportunity, if that's something that you have difficulties with, and that's okay, to excuse yourself if you feel like this is not quite something you can handle. But if you're willing to stick around, we're very happy to have you and to introduce you to our cause and to our situation that we got. So thank you very much. Just want to make sure you all know how to be comfortable. So we should get right to it, I figure. You all doing all right tonight?
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
I'm nervous.
Amazing.
You're gonna be doing great. Do you want me to just really immediately go to the meat and potatoes, or should I, give you an opportunity to introduce yourselves first? What would you prefer?
What do you think, Nugget?
Just a little bit. That way our audience out there gets to know us just a tad.
All right.
All right.
I can introduce myself.
Go for it.
My name is Drake Emberheart. I am a guest writer for Horse Music Herald and the co-founder of Bronies Against MS.
Yep. I am Witchy Spectra. I am the founder of Bronies Against MS. I have been living with multiple sclerosis for 2 years now. I have been a proud advocate for the disease ever since I was diagnosed, and I pride myself on teaching people about the disease and teaching others who have the disease about how to live with it.
I am Nugget. I am the community manager for Bronies Against MS. I have had a personal experience with MS with my grandfather, which we'll be learning a little bit more about later in the panel. But I am super excited to really be a part of this organization and help honor my grandfather and generate donations for others who have been affected by MS and can get that wonderful rehabilitation, not just for the victim, but for families as well.
All right. Before I ask you all more about that, I figure I should at least ask one of the cozier questions, just so audience can get a little bit into the whole subject matter. Since we're all here, we're also not just all here about our cause, we're also Bronies Against MS. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you became a Brony and why? Witchy, what do you want to go for first?
Well, I've always been interested in the show ever since Generation 3. My mom always used to buy me the toys, and ever since I found out there was a new show coming up, I was excited, and I said, hey, I want to check out this show. I've been a part of the fandom since the very beginning, and I've been a Brony ever since. That's all I gotta say.
I'll go.
Go ahead.
I have been watching MLP since I was a little kid in the 1980s, and then I fell off into the 90s. I fell off a little bit, and then when I found out they were rebooting the franchise, in the early part of this decade, two of my friends kept pestering me to watch it, and About 2014, they told me about the season 4 finale and told me that you need to watch this. So I powered through the first 3 seasons and got hooked on the characters, the storytelling, the songs. And then after season 4, combined with meeting my friends here in Ohio and going to BronyCon 2017, I became an official part of this fandom, and this fandom literally saved my mental state in my life.
And Nugget?
For me, my story starts in 2014 through a friend of mine who was a fan, sorry, of the Nostalgia Critic, actually, and we were laughing, having a lot of fun, and then he introduced me to a YouTuber by the name of Josh Scorcher, where at the time he was like doing his old school style MLP reviews of the bigger episodes like Friendship is Magic, Canterlot Wedding, Return to Harmony, where he was kind of riffing on the funny or stupid things about the episodes, but at the very end he would genuinely tell his opinion, and that he was always saying that no matter what, the show has is amazing. And so eventually I decided, after watching all of his reviews, to be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to give one episode of My Little Pony a shot. So I went on like Wikipedia and I looked like through all the episode titles, and I landed on one particular episode, For Whom the Sweetie Belle Toils, season 4, episode 19. I watched that episode and I got hooked. And ever since then, I binge watched like all the episodes of My Little Pony and everything like that. And that's how I became a brony, how I became a fan of the show. But I really wasn't active until 2017 when I went to GalaCon for the first time. So this is kind of like coming full circle, really, for me, especially with you, Perry, as the host. And since then, I've been going to like cons all over Europe, GalaCon, UK PonyCon, and really being active and participating within the community. And so I'm really happy to just be here and be helping out Bronies Against MS while giving back to a wonderful community that has given me so much happiness in my life.
That's fantastic. Thank you all so much for sharing your interest in how you got into My Little Pony. But here is where we get down to what we're here about in the end. That is Bronies Against MS. So for the audience, I really think the most fundamental question we need to answer is, what exactly is MS?
All right. I'm ready for this. Multiple sclerosis.
You got this.
Multiple sclerosis is an autoimmune disease that affects the central nervous system. It is when the white blood cells of your immune system begin to make a mistake, and it, I apologize, I'm a little nervous, but what it does is it begins to tear away the protective layering called the myelin around your nervous system. Think of it like the cord of cord of headphones, or of like an extension cord. What it does is when that cord is gone, it stops working, right? That's what it does to your nervous system. It can cause fatigue, bowel and bladder issues. It can cause vertigo, which is balance and coordination issues. It can even cause things as bad as depression, and it truly is horrible, honestly. It could even, like, some people can even lose their ability to walk.
So it comes with a... Oh, sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's all right. But that's just the tip of the iceberg.
So it comes with a wide variety of potential symptoms.
Absolutely.
And I'm guessing no two people's cases can be the same, because everyone's going to be different.
Even identical twins could have completely different experiences.
When and how can a person be diagnosed with MS? How do you find out?
I got this. Typically, it's between the ages of 20 and 30, but there has been cases where people younger than that have been diagnosed, or older than that been diagnosed. Am I right about that, Witchy?
20 and 50.
Okay, I was close.
It's all right.
However, there have been confirmed cases as young as 15 to even as old as 50 years old. So unfortunately, MS can almost affect you at any stage in your life.
Sadly, I've heard of a case where someone as young as 7 has caught this disease.
Oh,
And it can be
that's definitely
particularly
something.
tricky to diagnose because through rigorous testing, as I just learned today.
Yeah, sadly, way back in the day, how they used to diagnose you is they would put you in a hot bath of water, and they would watch you very closely. And if they noticed anything off about you, that's how they would diagnose you. That was in the old days. Now they will do spinal taps, they will do MRIs, CAT scans. The spinal tap is how I was diagnosed.
What is a spinal tap?
A spinal tap is where they take a long needle. Yes, this sounds pretty icky, so if you're very sensitive to needles, I suggest you mute for a second. They'll numb the lower part of your spine, and they will stick a needle in the cervical part of your spine, and they'll drain part of the spinal fluid. And they never really told me exactly what they do with it, but they test the spinal fluid to see if they're I apologize.
No, you're doing great. You mean like they will test for traces of the effects
Yes.
that you noted earlier of the white blood cells going a bit on a rampage.
I will tell you, it's a very uncomfortable experience.
Oh, I believe you. So a person can be diagnosed as usually between the ages of 20 and 30, but you said it can go to all ages. There is no limit, really. That's what you said.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that is the reality of this disease.
And
What are
another,
the sorry. Do you want to go ahead? Should I go ahead? Or do you want to go ahead?
I was going to add that why it is a rare disease, it does affect more people than you think it does. As I'm finding out the more I talk to our founder here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing that's also a factor of diagnosis.
Yes.
What are the early symptoms, like the ways you can not exactly tell yet, but the way you can tell something's going on with me, I need to get tested, I need to see a doctor? What's the early stuff?
That's the thing. When I was diagnosed, I was hit with all my symptoms at once, which was not pleasant, but what I've been told by multiple people is that they experienced vision issues such as double vision, vertigo, numbness and tingling, and of course, loss of bowel or bladder issues. Those are usually the really common ones. There are extremely rare ones, which are seizures, but those ones are harder to detect.
So usually someone who says something's not going right with me will experience especially the vertigo, the vision issues, those sort of things?
Yes. The proper term for the vision issues is optic neuritis.
Optic neuritis. Okay.
Yep.
And you say for some people you get early symptoms, and for some people it comes just it decides to happen all at once.
Oh,
so
yes.
There really isn't just one single progression for it.
Yeah, it can hit you all at once, or it could happen very suddenly, or it could happen over time.
You said it's a rare disease, but do you have obviously you don't need to be like like encyclopedias about this, but do you have a general idea for us how many people are affected by MS?
Okay,
So this question.
wait, what was that number?
So I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. According to recent findings by the National MS Society, there is an estimate actually of nearly 1 million people in the United States that are living with MS. And the society also estimates that there are actually about 2.3 million people who live with MS globally. But however, in the United States, there are roughly about 200 cases of MS diagnosed every single week. And so, depending upon where you live in the northern, there's it's about 100 like in the northern U.S. and about 100 in the southern U.S. depending upon where you live. So again, roughly about 1 million people in the United States currently live with MS.
So it's
And-
not as rare as one might think.
Yeah.
Actually, there's another factor to this too. MS has been around since the 1970s when they discovered it, but it continues to be a disease that people just don't understand. I mean, talking to people, just about getting people into our server, they're like, "What's MS?" Like a lot of people ask me that question, and I'm like, I'm known in my own head. I was like, I'm known about MS since I was a kid. So it's despite it being around for nearly 40 to 50 years, it's still a relatively known disease to the public, which is why we're here.
Exactly.
So awareness is definitely a big factor since when you just told me those numbers as someone who isn't personally affected with MS but is very very engaged with charity causes in this fandom, I knew MS existed, but I didn't know that 1 million people in the US alone were affected by MS. That's the sort of scale that you just have no idea about unless you really learn about it, and that's one of the many reasons why it's so good we're doing this panel.
Of course.
Great, and I share my sympathy as well with Drake Emberheart when I say that I knew about MS again through my grandfather, and it's been with me. That knowledge has really been with me for a long time, and it's only been until recently that I learned like, hey, wow, this disease is really not that much known to the general public, let alone bronies. And so, for me to kind of give that information out and spread the awareness feels good.
It really does.
Is there anything that can help people with MS outside of symptomatic treatments? Are there any treatments? I imagine this will tie into also the charity in a bit when we talk about that in a second. Have there been any strides in research towards helping and ideally curing MS?
No.
Go witchy.
I would like
It's
to
all
say,
yours,
sadly, there is research for treatments, but there is no known cure for it, due to the fact that we have no idea how MS is formed or quote unquote contracted. But luckily, I will tell you, for anybody who's paranoid out there, it is not contagious, don't worry. But we're not sure if it's hereditary, but we seem to know that there is a factor when it comes to environment. There have been studies that have shown that a lot of places, such as the UK and states that don't get a lot of sunshine, like places that are known for vitamin D deficiencies, such as Ohio, those seem to be hotspots for people with multiple sclerosis. There are more people in the state of Ohio that have MS than most states. That's an interesting fact.
You are right. That is interesting. So we know, and the environment is a bigger factor than one might think.
Yeah, so there are current studies that are showing that vitamin D deficiencies are linked to multiple sclerosis.
So hopefully something will come from that, but I'm guessing there's still a long way to go.
Absolutely.
So I'm thinking one of the many reasons to consider supporting research against MS is specifically so these causes can be identified better. Because usually, your immune system doesn't just suddenly decide to attack your own body in a way. So
Of course.
I'm imagining that is a pretty big factor that you really have to consider what makes this sudden shift happen, especially since it tends to happen later in life.
Yes.
So
It's funny you should bring that up, Perry, because as much advancement they've made in it, they still don't know what exactly causes MS, what triggers it in the body. They just know about the symptoms. They haven't found the core of the problem yet, according to what I found out today.
Exactly. And when it comes to treatments, we sadly only have 19 medications for the disease. Only 19. So if you can't tolerate any of those medications, you're out of luck.
oh, that is like 19 for a layman might sound like a lot at first, but you have to remember that there's a multitude of factors on what works for you. Some things might not work as much for you. Some things you are literally not able to take or tolerate. So 19 is actually not a good amount.
I will say, one of my medication, I was previously on another medication. It is a medication, I'm actually not going to say the name because I don't want to defame it, but it is a once a month medication. I was having seizure-like episodes and anaphylaxis from it because I was severely allergic to it. That's how bad the reactions can be to the medication.
Oh, wow. Sorry, can you say what anaphylaxis is?
Anaphylaxis is when when you can't breathe. It's when your throat starts swelling up.
Oh, yeah, that's a really serious.
Yeah.
That can happen to people even with like food allergies also, but that tends to be a really serious reaction.
Yeah.
So you have my full sympathy on that. That's rough.
Turns out I was a part of the 3% that had a severe reaction to that medication.
Oh, Bubba.
But luckily,
Bubba.
don't worry, I'm on a new medication. It's once every 6 months, and I'm feeling a lot better.
I'm glad. So, to make sure that we cover, now we have discussed, some of the effects of MS, some of the challenges, especially in terms of research and causes. So what is Bronies against MS specifically? That's where you all come in with your effort, but people need to learn. What is that?
Okay, Bronies Against MS is a group that I started. It was actually on a little whim that, well, there was a little charity event that was going around in my area called Walk MS. It is funded by, well, not really funded, but it is a charity walk by the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, or National MS Society. What they do is they raise money for MS research. I decided, hey, why don't we make a group? This group was founded because of that. I was really struggling to get donations for it because I really want to make a difference for this. I really want to make a difference for people who are suffering with MS. Because I've heard horror stories of people who are diagnosed as young as 7 years old, and I've heard horror stories of people who are in their 80s who can't receive treatment. This group is all about helping people who have been suffering long-term and suffering or recently diagnosed, honestly. What we want to do is we strive to help people who have been dealing with this disease, and we also want to educate people on this disease.
And I can add to it because me and Witchy are in the same Brony meetup group in Northeastern Ohio. The group itself was born in this small little group of Bronies that meet up every once in a while. And she asked a group of us to do the walk, and obviously because of the coronavirus, we couldn't do the walk. She approached me, and like she said, she was struggling. I mean, really struggling. Now, from personal experience, I've seen the effects of MS from her, so I felt incredibly sorry for her as a friend, and she was highly discouraged to the point where, she was trying to do $5 commissions to get donations. Around this time, I've made a ton of friends with a lot of content creators. I'm very fortunate to gotten to know them. People like the Wilsonator, Scribbler, Drummer Shy, Mackenzie, Luck Rock, a lot of musicians in the as Prince. Could we use your song Solidarity as a theme for the walk? And he agreed. He was actually flattered and happy to do that. And we made the Discord, we made the Twitter, and several of my friends started spreading the word around. Next thing we know, we're starting to get donations, and that's when Full Papers eventually noticed us, and it started to take off from there to the point where we thought about starting this Discord. And if I sat here and told you I didn't expect it to grow this much, I would have called you crazy. But I was glad to use my.
Oh, she fell. It happens. Don't worry, she'll be back. We'll pull her in.
You're fine.
Welcome back.
Very sorry about that disconnect. I hope you got to finish what you were saying, Greg.
I would have thought that it would have took off this much, because I've gotten to know a lot of these content creators. I know how to respect them. They're friends of mine. I also understand that, a little bit of star power, to spark the interest of our fandom goes a long way. And it has, like, unbelievably. And then here found us. You're up, buddy.
This group after donating about $200 to the Walk MS, and they asked me basically, hey, do you want to join our Discord and help us out? And I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, I've been personally affected by the MS through my grandfather, and then I was just seeing along the lines of, well, they're kind of struggling a little bit, especially with the Walk MS, and so I decided to really be like, you know what? I've seen charity booths before, especially at Galacon, and I was like, why not spend some of my own money to maybe start doing promotional booths at these events to kind of help generate a lot more donations. And to my surprise, it really started to work. The donation, we did our first promotion at Burning Man this year, and that generated $500+ for us. And in addition, we did charity auctions as well, to the point, now we've gotten people to really start donating and learning about our cause.
UMS also noticed us.
That was completely a surprise on our own. We kept pinging them so much on Twitter to the point where they just flat out had like a big they wrote us a thank you note from the bottom of their hearts, just for us helping them out to generate $1,287 for their Sweat It Out campaign, which is what we are currently supporting for them at this moment. And in total right now, with the Can Do MS campaign and the Walk MS campaign that we supported, we have generated to the point of $3,289.29. However, our mission for this year is to try to push that to $10,000 in total.
Mm-hmm.
So where you mentioned Can Do MS, is that where your donations go? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Can't
No
do
problem.
Go ahead.
Okay. We are supporting Can Do MS, and Can Do MS delivers health and wellness education programs to help families with MS thrive. They assist to deliver education about MS to colleges and schools, while establishing rehabilitation programs for those who were affected by MS and now they're recovering. They're staffed by mental health professionals, occupational and physical therapists, physicians, nurses, dietitians, and more. They're the real experts of this disease versus us, who know off firsthand and through a lot of internet research. So I just want to quickly throw this disclaimer out. We're not the professional experts on this, so everything we say about the facts and everything, take that kind of with a grain of salt, but definitely consult actual nurses and real professionals about the disease.
I would like to say something. I actually did learn from a lot of doctors and nurses, so if you do,
of course,
learn a lot about MS.
The experiences are absolutely valid. But there's just like, obviously you can't give, professional individual medical advice.
Yeah, I can't diagnose you. I cannot diagnose you.
No, that
none
needs
of
to
us
be done
here
by
can
a
diagnose
professional.
us.
Yeah.
No, that's a place
we
for
don't pretend to be
professional.
doctors.
If you think you have MS, please go to a professional.
But we're here to educate. That is the idea. How can someone help outside of donating?
Well, honestly, spreading the news and joining the Discord would really help. Just coming to...
Sharing tweets?
Of course.
Telling people?
Oh, yeah. Just one thing that we do in our Discord server is we have a great lineup of guests, and one of their main duties is to spread with all their followings, spread the word, and get their fans. And we're trying to stretch to all parts of the fandom, which we have representatives from different parts of the community, representatives from the analysis community, musicians, artists, blush makers, voice actors, personalities. We want everybody, to come together, like let's put our songs to solidarity and this together, to fight this disease and, help these patients. And if you're not, you can be someone like Silverquill or just a fan that enjoys the show and just coming into our Discord and cheering us on and supporting us and being positive. That goes a long way, giving a couple of dollars, spreading it around, talking to people amongst your bronies like, hey, I learned about this thing called MS. It sounds like a terrible disease, and just talking about us. And it's like, there's a ton of charities in the brony community, but I believe we're the only one that's doing strictly MS. And considering, how rare disease is, and we do this for Witchy, and everybody that she's trying to fight for.
All right. Bronies Against MS definitely needs your support. And one of the reasons we're here is, as I said earlier, is to educate. Since, we're not professionals at treating MS, but the members of the panel are people who have the experts, I would say, because it's just as valid of a thing to have expertise in the personal experience department. So we're going to just be discussing personal experiences with MS. So for each member of the panel, what is your exact relationship with MS?
Nugget, you can go first.
My relationship with MS is through my grandfather. He was diagnosed at the age of 32 while still in the Coast Guard, and unfortunately, because he was diagnosed with MS, he had to retire. He had to retire from the armed forces, and since then, his whole entire physical state just deteriorated to the point where he lost the ability to walk. He lost vision in his left eye and his ability to move his left arm with a barely functioning right arm. and eventually, again, from the age of 32 to when he died at 68, he was just losing all of his motor functions and the ability to talk as well.
That's rough.
So that's my relationship to MS.
Drake, I'm gonna let
I can go.
I'm gonna let you go because mine's a long one.
Why nobody in my family has had MS. My experience is through Witchy, and she's gonna probably explain this more. But at several of our meetups, I noticed that ever since that she started showing up with a walker, she told that she couldn't eat certain foods anymore. She couldn't eat meat, she couldn't eat beef or pork. She had to watch what she ate. She couldn't go outside. If we held a meet outside, she was very limited. Sometimes she couldn't come at all because of the weather. If It's like we went on a hike, last year, and the heat basically didn't linger on her to the point where she couldn't even. She had to turn back around, go all the way back to where our cars are parked to wait for us because she was just so fatigued. It's just ridiculous. When she's at her meetups, she can't move around a lot. She's got to sit down. She's got to have ventilation. She's going to have plenty of fluids. It was really difficult, and, she has told every one of us in our meetup group how incredibly frustrating it is some days of it. And when you're around it and somebody that's helped you so much, like she has me, seeing somebody suffer like that, it really affects you. I'm not going to lie. I'm glad she's getting the treatment, but I hope our efforts can find new research to slow down the progression of her disease. And I'm making my personal business to do whatever I can to help her, which is why I have worked so tirelessly hard getting as many of my friends, well known in this fandom, to our Discord to help. And I have a saying, I say on Twitter, come join this fight, stay for the friendship, and having the elements of harmony, all the things of friendship is going to be essential to helping people like Witchy, being nice and compassionate, honest, knowing how to laugh, being loyal, when things get tough, because there's going to be ups and downs. So, everything that the Brony community stands for can help this cause. And I'll let Witchy take over because she's got a lot to say. This is your moment, Witchy.
Drake, I just want to say I really appreciate what you said there, man. It's to the point where I'm kind of shaking. Oh my goodness. But I will say, with my group, I am known as the Pinkie Pie of the group because I know how to make people laugh, I know how to make people smile, and this is going to be a bit of a rough story. As early as 2016, I experienced these short-out seizure-like moments. My mom would constantly take me to doctor's appointment after doctor's appointment with misdiagnosis and no results. This went on until 2017. 2017, I got absolutely nothing. Suddenly, these seizure moments would stop. I thought it was the end of it. And these little episodes would always leave me nauseous, they would leave me dizzy, and I would even lose my memory of what happened that day. I would have no recollection of what happened. I got brain MRIs and there would be nothing on there. January 2018. I had slurred speech, double vision, and balance issues to the point where I would constantly fall and I couldn't walk up the stairs. It was it was insane. I had people yell at me, laugh at me, and they would say, "Are you drunk? Are you drunk? You should stop drinking so much." They would also tell me to get up, you're faking it. You need to stop. You need to stop trying to get so much attention. And my mom knew something was wrong because I wouldn't act like this. I'm not an attention seeker. Yes, I like to make people laugh and smile, but not like that. She took me to an eye doctor, and they said I had something called optic neuritis. This optic neuritis is a common thing when it comes to MS. She told me I need to go get another MRI. Well, the doctor told me I need to go get another MRI. If I had the pictures, I would show you guys. If I were to put those MRIs right next to each other, they look like two completely different people because I lit up like a Christmas tree. I had so many lesions, which are brain scars. I had so many lesions that they looked like two separate people. I was completely dumbfounded, and I had no idea what MS was. What's worse is, they didn't even tell me what it was. I got my diagnosis over the phone, which is the worst way to get your diagnosis. I wasn't given an explanation, and they hung up when I tried to ask. I laid in my bed crying, and I didn't know what to do. I sat there on my phone constantly saying, am I gonna die? Am I gonna die? Am I gonna die? I was searching this disease out because I had no idea what it was. My mom said, "This is a spinal thing. What are you talking about?" Turns out it wasn't. It was called multiple sclerosis. It is a disease where your immune system is attacking your central nervous system. I began to do lots of research. I began meeting people at these MS meetings, and I made so many friends that taught me about this disease. And I wouldn't be here today talking about it with you guys if I didn't take the steps necessary to learn what I did now. I've become a proud activist in this community, and I'm not going to stop now. I have been judged for having this disease. I have been beaten down. I have been teased. And I would like to share one more story. I used to get SSI disability. And I was getting reinstated. And the judge told me to my face when I had my walker, I was having walking issues that day. He had the nerve to look me in the face and say, "You haven't had MS for a year, and it's going to go away." He told me that about a chronic disease that is going to last the rest of my life. He said this disease is going to go away. And that made me so mad. I walked out of that courtroom crying to my mother because that enraged me so badly. And that's my story with MS.
And that's the dangers of ignorance and misinformation about this disease. People saying stuff they have no knowledge of what this actually does, that's why we want to prevent, stuff like that happening. So, that kind of cruelty doesn't get thrown at people because, I heard that, I was like, that's completely unacceptable, and that judge should be ashamed of himself for saying something like that. Just thinking that you don't say stuff like that to somebody who's suffering that disease. You just don't.
Thank you so much for sharing your stories. That is that takes a moment to process, but I'm very grateful you all spoke about your personal experience, especially Witchy. Thank you very much. There's really nothing that replaces hearing directly from people affected. Because like I said earlier, when it comes to experience, you are the real experts. And that is something that cannot and should never be dismissed.
Of course.
So you covered this already, Witchy, so I will give you a second of a break here, but Jake and Nugget, you kind of covered this a little bit, but just briefly, I'm just looking at the time just to make sure. But just briefly, can you tell us what it was like when someone you cared about, in this case, was affected by MS? How was that for you to really see the progression and the effect on their lives?
If I may, there's a really sad aspect to my story, I would say, especially with my grandfather, because all my life I've only known my grandfather for having MS. I've always seen him in his wheelchair at all times. I've never I saw like the progression of the later progressions, but I never saw the early ones. To get the full story, you would have to talk to my grandmother about that. So I saw basically what the progression or the worst that it can get with MS through my grandfather, where over the years I saw his entire health pretty much deteriorate down. Well, I would think back like earlier in my childhood, him being able to do like complete sentences and be able to talk and hold, a conversation. But then later in his years, by the time he died, he was barely struggling to just get a couple words out in English. So, and in order for him to do that, he had to be like in a cool room under a cool temperature and everything like that, and just pray that it was just a good day for him to talk. Otherwise, if he was exposed to any sort of heat, especially like in 90 degrees or 35 degrees Celsius for our European fellows, he would just shut down completely. I mean, he'd be done. He couldn't function. He couldn't function at all. It was that bad for him with his MS. And so that's how I saw him really affect him, was in those later stages.
For me, I'm sorry, Perry. Were you going to say something?
No. Just again, I'm not trying to, like rush you. Just make sure you keep it a little bit brief so we can cover a few more points.
I can keep it brief. I think the most difficult thing, seeing a friend is like hearing her that, she wants to learn how to hunt and do all this stuff, increase her cooking skills, and, she has goals and everything. And all of a sudden you just see her, her mood has changed, and, she can't get around as like she wants to. And just seeing all these things affect her. And it can be a little heartbreaking. And once I found out she had MS, my mind went to one of my former friends, told me, that his sister, about how she was affected by MS and what it did to her, and eventually took away her speech, her movement, until she was completely paralyzed. And I was just scared to death for her. And the feeling you're sitting there and you don't want to misspeak or, say something insensitive or positive that, gives them a false sense of hope or security. So it sucked. All of us, just didn't know what to say. Luckily, Witchy here basically wouldn't let us basically, feel sorry for her too much because she wanted our company. But, watching somebody you care about, dealing with this, it sucks. It really does. That's the best way I can put it. Which is why I'm so motivated to help her with this cause. You have no idea.
I would like to say, I may have MS, but MS certainly doesn't have me. I'm not letting this disease take me down.
That is a very good attitude to have. But I understand it's not always easy, so you have my full respect on that.
I may have to sacrifice a few things, but I'm not letting it take over my life.
Oh, this woman here is a firecracker. Trust me. Don't let MS fool you. She is somebody who is probably one of the bravest people I know with dealing with this. So it's inspiring to me to help her, to see her just be on the front lines with me, and just doing her thing and just telling me, hey, this is me, this is what I'm going through. I need your help and I want you to learn.
With my grandfather, he fought multiple sclerosis with optimism and a great sense of humor. I mean, of course he had it, but it really did not define him at all. He stuck through. He just stuck through with it and just had the greatest sense of humor the entire time, to the point where you wouldn't really even think about his MS anymore. You'd just be thinking about that's my grandfather.
So just Witchy, if you don't mind, because I think personally this is always a really good question, just for people who do not have the experience to just get an idea of what it's like. Can you walk us just briefly through what a typical day is like for you?
Oh boy, where do I start? All right. I would just like to say it is very troubling getting out of bed. You know that feeling when you just want to lay in bed all day? That's every day with me. My fatigue is my worst symptom. It's like I feel like I'm jet lagged all day, every day. I will always feel somewhat dizzy, but I've gotten so used to it that it doesn't bother me anymore. But I have good days, I have my bad days. Some days I'll feel fine. Other days I'll feel like I just want to just stay in bed all day, Like, I know it's very difficult to explain.
I think you're doing a good job, so don't be afraid. Keep going.
Yeah, it's just very difficult to explain. Like, some days you'll feel like you're on top of the world. Like, you'll feel like, oh, nothing's gonna happen today. Next minute, you're gonna be slammed with all your symptoms at once, and you're gonna lay on the floor just eating potato chips and sleeping next to the dog.
Or taking a 2-mile hike.
Oh, yeah. I try. One of the things my doctor recommended is, taking hikes to try to combat my fatigue. So, that's usually what I try to do to combat my bad days.
Get outside. Get outside.
And to give you another idea, there is sometimes on our Discord where she's not very active, which is where I have to pick up the slack, and that's just a reality that me and Nugget have to deal with, that sometimes she's just not as active as we want her to be, and being understanding is key. Communicate. We still try to communicate, but she's our secret weapon with this, but she's also has her limitations because of them. So we have to be careful with that.
Exactly.
As well, which is why, again, I've had to as much as I do depend on Witchy to make certain key decisions, I also have to take charge with a lot of the promotions and signing us up for panels and everything like that. I do my best to try not to leave her out of the situation, but again, with limitations of her MS, we have to remain respectful to it.
Speaking of that, if that's okay, I cover that question since, again, sorry, we are running a bit out of time, but I want to make sure we still cover this part. Witchy, personally, since you're the one who deals with this, as you said, in different amounts depending on your day, but it can really just be all over the place even during the day. So that is already something that takes a lot of energy out of you. What do you think could people do who want to be supportive and respectful? What do you think they could do to make your life a bit easier?
All I can say is research and better understand it. Don't immediately assume. Just don't assume what I'm doing. Don't assume what anybody with MS is doing. Because this disease can come off as invisible. Just take time, have patience, and please just try to understand. Because this disease
Definitely have to agree. Sorry about that, Witchy.
Just please have patience.
Absolutely
Yeah.
agree with the patience part, because again, growing up with my grandfather, I would have to be the one that's always strapping him into the van all the time, and I would sometimes even get sick of just doing that. But you have to think about it for a minute. He can't do it. He can't do it himself. He can't do half. He can't literally do even a quarter of the things that I can do, because I can just walk around. And so you have to be extremely patient around people with MS. Please.
Yeah, I
And-
think if I may just chime in just briefly, from my experience dealing with, people both of myself and others who had especially like more invisible diseases, the most important thing is that people believed them. Which she said, which I thought was harrowing, just the judge who was judging her disability case didn't believe her. That's the most important thing. You don't need to know everything immediately, but you need to believe the people who know, who live these experiences. You need to believe them that what they tell you is true and that what they're experiencing is true. That is the key in my experience.
I can add to that about invisible diseases and why it's not. I don't have MS. I have really bad ADHD, and I know firsthand what it's like to be told that your condition doesn't exist. So I can relate to. I can tell you firsthand how upsetting that is. So that's another thing I can relate to her about, even though I don't have it.
All I could say is mental health and MS, we have a lot of things in common.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand us, but people need patience and time and understanding.
That's really the most important thing in many cases in life, but especially with things like this. Again, here's the thing. There's so many important things we could be talking about, but we have, a limited time. Yeah. Really sorry to have to cut things off a bit, but this is really just scratching the surface. So if I may say so, there's a lot of I'll give you all the last word, because again, you're the people who really know this stuff. But just from my personal experience, if you're interested, if you're curious, do not hesitate to ask questions. But especially out there's a lot of accounts of people with their experiences. You should listen to them. Don't be afraid to seek information out. Don't be afraid to look up Bronies Against MS. Don't be afraid to look up charitable causes, but also just generally like community experiences, personal experiences. Don't be afraid to look them up and learn more, because the education really matters so much. So I'll leave the final words to you all, but it's been a big pleasure to have hosted you, and I'm extremely glad we got to share at least just a little bit of information about the situation, and I'm really hoping this can continue. So thank you all so much for taking the time and the energy to share your stories.
Well, I'll close with this. You know, any brony you're listening to this right now, join our Twitter, join our Discord. You know, come join this fight. We need you, and we need the love and friendship of this fandom behind this cause. And you know, we're a very accepting group. We have a great line of guests that will excite you. We have activities, and just come. We need your help.
For C PonyCon, we are currently running a promotion where if you donate to Can Do MS, we will be more than happy to send you something absolutely for free shipping worldwide. Please donate to Can Do MS through our team page. Link is on the Twitter. And again, we'll be more than happy to send you some little goodies. But again, thank you so much for joining for our panel and learning about MS through us. You're doing a lot to help us out and for those who are affected by MS, such as Witchy.
And I would also like to say thank you for joining us. And you guys are really awesome for taking your time out of your day to join us. Thank you so much for coming to join us, and we really appreciate it. Please follow the Twitter. Please join the Discord. We can't wait to have you.
And we have a special game night coming up Thursday. You can
Yes,
come
we
play
do.
Cards Against Humanity and Jackbox game with some of your favorite content creators at
All day.
$5. Give the charity, have some fun.
Yes, we'll have some special guests, and it will be fun. All right. Ready?
So, everyone take care. Please have a good night. Be kind to each other and yourselves, especially, when times are tough like they are right now. And whenever you have a question or you need to know more, Bronies Against the Mess are on Twitter. They are right here. So check out the Discord also. Be sure to not be afraid to reach out. You all take care. All right?